Well, hello there. Welcome back to the podcast. I am interrupting my series, my monthly series, to come to you with a very special podcast episode because today we are celebrating 5 years of podcasting. It is insane for me to say this out loud, but I literally started this podcast 5 years ago. Actually, that's a lie. I'm recording this episode on May 14th, so it'll be May 15th when you hear it, but you'll get the idea. But I really wanted to wait to record this episode for you till the last minute. I mean, it is in true Juliana fashion to record this episode the day before it goes live. But the reason why I waited on purpose was because I really wanted to sit with the lessons that I have learned, the mistakes I have made, the things that I did really well, and so that I could pass those along to you and you could learn something from this episode. So you could learn from my mistakes, you can learn from the things that I feel like I did really well, and apply that to your own life. So I am going to break down this probably into 3 parts. So I have things that I did well, things that I failed, and things that I wish I knew. So let's get into it. Okay, so the number one thing that I feel like I did really well is that I just started scrappy. I had nothing but a lot of hope, I guess, for my podcast. And I am somebody who really is driven by hope. When I feel hopeful about something, I just go. And I literally started with my Apple headphones, like the wired headphones that come with your phone. I started with that, and I finally, when it was time for me to upgrade, I finally upgraded to a gamer headset, which cost $20. And then later on, I upgraded to a Yeti, which if you ask any, professional podcaster, any real podcaster, if you ask the bros, they're going to be like, oh, no, not the Yeti. But I'm like, I love it and it looks great on photos. So yeah, Team Yeti over here. But all this to say is that I started with what I had and I just did the thing. This podcast was fueled by hope in the beginning, and I'm just so glad that I started, that I didn't get into any perfectionist tendencies, that I wasn't like, oh my gosh, and I need a studio and I need the perfect background and I need, to soundproof this place or whatever. Like I just started recording one day, and the first recording actually sucked. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But I just did the thing. I just started recording, and that's the end of it. Like I didn't get in my own way, if you get what I'm saying. The next thing is that I stayed consistent. I have been consistently showing up on this podcast since I launched. The only time that I was not consistent was in August of, 2023. I was pregnant with my third, and it was just a really tough time for me. Things were very uncertain. It was unclear if the pregnancy was going to progress or not, or what was happening to me. Fear not, the baby's here and he is 14 months. And, but it was a tough time for me. So I just backed off my podcast for about a month, and I really just needed to, take care of me and my family and have that time off. But other than that, I have never skipped a beat. And, I have done it all. I have done, daily episodes. I've done 3 episodes a week, 2 episodes a week, 1 episode a week. Now we're doing this monthly episodes, which is just so crazy to me. But I am a data-driven person, and if I don't do it on my podcast, then how can I share the data with my clients? And let me just tell you, this is something that I'll share with you guys like later on in a few months in another podcast episode. But the data has been very interesting, to say the least. Like I was not expecting what's been going on here in podcast land, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I stayed committed, right? So that was the next thing that I did really well. I just stayed committed. I've shared with you guys multiple times that I did a giveaway and nobody entered, and I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. Like we're just going to keep going. Like I just didn't let that bother me. I never really, if I'm being super honest, I've always tracked my downloads because I want to make sure that the downloads are going the right direction, that I'm getting downloads, but I never got bogged down by, oh my gosh, I only got X downloads or whatever. Like, I just committed, and like, I just trusted that my episode would land in the ears of the right person, and hoped for the best. Again, like I said in the beginning, this podcast was fueled by hope, and I just committed, and I didn't look, to the sides. I just did the thing. The next thing that I did really well was that I kept trying even when things flopped, and I wasn't afraid to try new things. So, sometimes you try things and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so good. I'm going to be like a millionaire, and like they don't work, but it's okay. Like, I tried things out, and that was the beauty of it. Like, perseverance is definitely like one of my values, I definitely, don't get me wrong, I am not like Pollyanna, just always positive no matter what. That is not me. I feel rejection as much as the person next door. And those things, they do affect me, right? Like, especially because in this online business, I don't think people understand that when something happens to your online business, it feels like it's happening to you, because for those of us in this online space, you are the business, right? So like, if you put out an offer and nobody buys that offer, it doesn't feel like people are rejecting the offer. It feels like people are rejecting you. And for those of us who have the spirit of rejection with them, hello, that's me, it can be super hurtful. But, I just learned to let things go and to adopt the mindset of a scientist rather than somebody who just, takes it personally. Because the thing about scientists, and I heard this a while ago, is that they never figure something out on the first try. Like, it takes them tries and tries and tries for something to happen, for them to actually, prove a theory or come up with something or whatever. I actually heard that WD-40, I don't know if this is true, okay? So don't come knocking on my virtual door upset at me if this story is wrong. But I've heard that WD-40 is called WD-40 because the 40th try was the try that actually worked, like all the other 39 tries before that were a flop, so I just adopted that scientist mindset that I was going to try things out. And of course I got upset along the way, but I just decided to pick myself back up and keep on trying, keep on moving forward, and not let things get to me. They got to me, like I said, but I kept moving forward. That is the point. Another thing that I did really well is that I hustled, and I know hustle is a bad word in the online space, but I did. I honestly did. Like, I was committed, I was showing up, I was pouring into this podcast, and, I wasn't living in this la la land. Like, I worked hard, and I stayed the path. When most people would have given up, I stayed the path, and here we are 5 years later. And let me just tell you something. It feels like, some people say like, oh my gosh, I blinked and 5 years passed. It kind of sort of feels like that, but it also feels very real, like that it's been 5 years. But it's at the same time, it's just crazy. Like, I've been doing this for 5 years. Like, what? This is insanity. Like, do people even do stuff like that in these days, but here I am, Now let's talk about things where I failed. Okay. These are not in any particular order, okay? Like, these are just the things where I failed. The first thing I put down was that I waited to pitch, right? So at the time I was working with a coach, and this coach was like, no, you have to wait to pitch, don't start selling now. You have to build up a following. I don't know why she told me that, but the minute that I started pitching on my podcast, I made a sale. So I always tell my clients, like, don't wait to pitch, like, just start pitching right away. Even if you're launching to an audience of no one. By the way, if you're new around here, I launched to an audience of 0. Like, I didn't have an email list. I did not have a social media following. I had nothing. And I launched it. I just did the thing, okay? And I waited to pitch. That was the first mistake that I did. If I were to restart my podcast again, I wouldn't. I would just start pitching from day one. Now, This mistake is a big one, and it's one that it really hurts me when I really think about it, which is every single day because I'm a mom, and that is in some way, shape, or form, I neglected my kids because I was building this business, right? Like the podcast is my business. How I make money is through the podcast, because whether somebody finds me through the podcast or they come to me because they know of the success that I've had with my podcast, and I have proven that because I also do that for clients. They're like, I want to work with you, Juliana. So the podcast is how I make money. The podcast is how I provide for my family. And the whole reason why I started an online business was so that I could spend more time with my family, was that I could have more freedom, more flexibility, so that I could be my full hippie self and, at a time go into Whole Foods and buy whatever organic thing I wanted, and if you don't know, those things are so expensive. Like it's expensive to be a hippie, to be natural minded and all of that. But there were times where I would just get frustrated with my kids, like if I was trying to work or get something done and my kids were being kids and needing me, as kids do, I would just get frustrated at them and not be loving and kind with them, So I really regret, not being there for my kids or not putting them first, right? Because on paper, I was like, yeah, like I'm doing this for my kids. But like in reality, if I was doing this for my kids, I would have not been frustrated with them and unkind to them like I was, So now I try to have a balance. Well, I don't try. I do have a balance. And it's not every single day that I can accomplish this, but for most days, I have a balance where I get a little bit of work done in the morning if I have work to do. And then I don't push anything throughout the day. And then if I have to work at night, like I am doing right now, it is 8 p.m. right now, and I'm recording this podcast episode. It's not always that I have to work at night, but, and mind you, by this point in time, I have a full team and I have support. So it's not like I am working hours on end, because I have a well-oiled machine. I have put in the time and effort into this business. But it saddens me that it has taken me so long to fully comprehend that I was saying that I was doing this for my kids, right? I was building this business for my kids, for a better future, for more flexibility and spending more time with them. But really, I wasn't always nice to them in the process. If I could go back and do things over again, I would have put my kids first, like actually put my kids first. I would have played with them during the day, and I would have, sit up at night and, I don't know, drink coffee or whatever I needed to do to actually do the thing, right? Like be, do, have, right? Like I would have been the person who was saying like what she was actually wanting to accomplish. I hope that's making sense. It's 8:00 around here, and your girl, is trying to get this point across, but I trust that you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay. Another place where I failed is that I have gotten emotionally charged for no reason. And I'll tell you what that looks like. It looks like, just being upset if something didn't go my way, or whatever, if like something flopped, right? Like just taking things personally, which, I did mention that one of the things was that I kept going even when things flopped, right? But then on the flip side of that, I did get emotionally charged, and I wish I hadn't, because everything worked out. In the end, everything worked out. And just so you know, I don't know where you are in your business journey, but you will always come back to a starting point. And it's a cyclical thing. At the beginning of your business, you're setting things up, you're starting from the ground up, and that's a starting point, right? And then it comes to a point where you have grown your business. So the next phase after that is for you to scale your business, right? So then you go back to the starting point. So there are always going to be starting points in your business. And whenever you are at that starting point, it's going to be frustrating, and you're probably going to feel emotionally charged. And you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I should know this by now, or I should have figured this out, or whatever. I cannot believe I'm here again. And I just want to normalize this for you because, yeah, it's normal. It is absolutely normal for you to go through this cycles in your business where you are adding on, you're doing things differently, you are growing, you are scaling, and it takes a different kind of step than the steps you took in the beginning of your business. So I am in a phase now that I am scaling my business, and I'm finding myself in this beginning stage again because I'm doing something new, and it's like, oh my gosh, this sucks, or oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be different, or oh my gosh, whatever, fill in the blank. And I just have to remind myself, because at least now I have the maturity to be like, okay, it's fine. Okay, we're frustrated, we're angry. I am talking to my friend Tiffany, and I'm like, hey girl, this is happening, help me out. But then I come back to center, and I'm like, no, this is cool. This is part of the process. It's okay. Like, everything's gonna work out. It's just that when you're in the thick of it, it's just hard for you to have that perspective and that clarity. But it's true. It's true. Like, everything works out. And I also want to say here, like, I put down some notes as I was preparing for this episode. I have felt insecure, and I have felt like I didn't belong. As I'm getting older and really dissecting myself, I'm very good at dissecting myself. I don't like to not understand the why behind things. I really need to understand how things operate, especially myself, because once I can understand myself, then I can do better, right? Know better, do better. And I've really, not recently, but like in the past, probably, I don't know, let's say 12 months or so, I've really come to understand how much of the spirit of rejection I have in me. And that is the thing that I have to really work on. It's really lies from the enemy that I just don't feel like I belong. Like, I just feel like I'm the outcast. I just feel different. I just feel like, all the girls are, eating lunch together at a table, and I'm like out here, like, okay, like, I guess I just sit by myself. And it's not that at all. Like, it's all in my head, like, the reason why I don't belong is because, like, I am different, and I'm a weirdo, and that's okay. But that's the beauty about me, and the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because if you are somebody who is in the space of like, oh my gosh, like, should I be doing this? Yes, you should. If you feel like you don't belong, it's okay. Like, it's okay. And the reason why you feel like that is because, like, girl or boy, you literally don't, and that's okay. It's okay for you not to belong. As a matter of fact, more often than not, it's a blessing that you don't belong, because you see things differently and you do things differently. And I think, I've really come to appreciate the thing about me, because while everybody's talking about, let's all do this, and this is what we do, and this is how we think, and this is how we act, I'm over here like, no, I ain't doing that. I'm not subscribing to that, and I'm gonna do things differently. And this is how I am in business. This is how I am in life. I'm always questioning everything. I'm always looking for my own bias, and I'll give you like this very personal example. So to really paint a picture, I have been vegan for over a decade, like probably 13 years or so. 12 years. It was 2013 when I went vegan. I had been vegetarian since the age of 12. So it's been a long journey for me, but I'm always looking at the other side. Okay, like, why is somebody a carnivore? Why does somebody do keto? Why does somebody do whatever? Like, why does somebody choose to eat animals? Like, I'm always looking at the other side and try to understand the other side. Like, why is somebody a hunter, right? Because I want to have perspective. And I also want to make sure that the beliefs I get are beliefs that I'm making based on facts and based on data versus just a feeling, or versus me just being charged about something. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. But the point is, I challenge myself a lot. I do this on the daily. I really do. And I like to do things very different. Like, I'm a very different type of vegan. I'm a very different type of business owner. I'm a very different type of podcaster. And that is all by design, because I like to do things differently, because I get different results. Because if you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get the results that everybody else is getting, and you're going to just drown in the sea of sameness. And I don't want that. I want to stand out. I want to be different. I want to like not belong, So that's that. I just felt like I needed to say that because, I made a pretty little note here that I should. Now, if there's one thing that I wish I knew then, that I knew in like another concept, right? Like intellectually, I was like, yes, I get it. But I didn't really understand it. And here's the thing. I wish I had known that a business has this very spiritual aspect. And once you trust that there is a higher power that knows the timing of everything, and you just trust and you surrender, beautiful things happen. And that has been my journey. Like I really didn't really come to understand this until, I don't know, probably 2023, 2024, somewhere around there. This very spiritual side of business. Because when I look back, I'm like, oh man, like despite, me not having, like, let's say I want to do a launch, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to launch this thing. And I didn't have like a full-blown strategy behind it. Like I didn't do a pre-launch and I didn't launch it for 14 days and I didn't have a webinar and this thing and like this crazy email sequence or whatever. Things worked out. Like my business grew, like things worked out. Despite me not having all the strategy in place, when I look back, I'm like, okay, like because it was time. Like things worked because there were time, because I had things in place, right? Like I had been working, I had been chipping away at the business, at the podcast, at the things that I was working on at the time, And when it was time for the Heavenly Father to be like, you got it, girl. Now we're going to do this. Then it happened, So I wish that I had really understood that there is a loving creator and that he knows. And when the time is right, like things just happen. So, if that's you right now, like maybe you, like me, you conceptually understand this idea that, things will happen, right? When they will happen, just keep chipping away, like keep putting out, the best podcast episode that you possibly can. And I'm not talking about sound quality and the best microphone. That's not it. I'm talking about speaking from the heart. I'm talking about just showing up as yourself and like speaking from the heart and with your goal of radically changing somebody's life. And okay, let me rephrase that. I don't mean radically like somebody's going to go from like, 0 to 100 in a day. I mean like they walk away like, wow, like I learned something new today. And sometimes like it's in the smallest breakthroughs that we have actually like those huge life-changing moments, right? So focus on that. Focus on pouring into somebody and just keep doing your thing. Put your head down and work and just trust that the Heavenly Father will take care of you. That the creator, the loving creator who made all these beautiful things, when you look around and you look at the trees and the birds and the flowers and like the fruit, and you're like, wow, like this is crazy, like this is insane, look how beautiful this is, just trust that the same love and care that he put into making those things, he put into you, and at the right time, the shift will happen. Now, I'm currently reading the Chronicles of Narnia to my kids, and it's crazy because I was like, whatever, fantasy, who reads fantasy, like this stuff, whatever. And I started reading to my kids and I'm hooked. Like my kids and I are hooked, especially my 9-year-old. Like we were both like, oh, like just loving the book. And there's a part in one of the books, I forget which one. And this concept like really came full circle to me. And I wish I had the book with me, but it's in my daughter's room and I'm not going to go in there because, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to open up a can of worms if I go to her room right now to grab the book. But basically it is this part where Aslan, the lion, says to, I forget who he says this to, but it was a boy who had been wronged his whole life. And like messed up things had happened to him. I forget names, okay? I just remember Aslan. But he was saying like, I was the lion who took you away from this bad situation. I was the lion who protected you at night. I was the lion who I was the cat who kept you warm at night. I was this and I was this and I was this. And there were bad things, like, okay, quote unquote bad things. Like there were never bad things. Like in the moment for that boy, they seemed like there were bad things, right? But like when you have the bigger perspective, it was like, oh, okay, like it might have seemed like it was a bad thing at the moment, but like once you have the whole story, it was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So you know what? I will try to find that quote, and if I do, I will put it down in the show notes, because it was like when I read that, I had chills, and I'm like, yes, like it was just like a beautiful way for me to conceptualize this concept again, because I understand the concept intellectually, and even conceptually I get it, but like once I read that in the book, I was like, wow, like it was just so beautiful. It was just so beautiful. Anyway, another thing that I want to say, that what I wish I knew about business, and was another thing that I understood it intellectually, but really not conceptually until more recently, was this, is that an online business can be extremely healing. And the reason for that is because it's gonna bring up a lot of things that you didn't even know were problems, right? So next time that you are feeling unqualified, that you're feeling like you don't belong, you're feeling like you're not loved, you're feeling like no matter how hard I try, I'm not making any sales, or my downloads are not growing, or whatever, like whatever woes, okay, you've got. More than the business itself, it's something to look to on the personal side. Now, I'm not suggesting you stop the business and you go, take a sabbatical and you go on a Eat, Pray, Love tour. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I am saying take a moment to stop and say, okay, I'm doing this thing right now and I'm feeling extremely triggered and frustrated. What's really at the core here? Because this is not about this. It's about something deeper. And then start digging deeper. Because when you do, and you understand, the root cause of those triggers, then you can calm your body down a lot quicker. And you can get out of this, stage, like the state of, oh my gosh, everything sucks, and why is it like this, and why am I not seeing results, and why, So the faster that you can recognize that a business trigger is not an actual business trigger, it's actually like a personal trigger, it's just reflecting your business, the better off you are. So like, let's say for example, you do a product launch, and let's say it flops, like nobody bought, you went all out, right? Like let's say you had a strategy planned, you did a webinar, you did the follow-up sequence, you did everything right, like everything the bros tell you to do, you did it, like check mark, gold stars, mwah, chef's kiss, and nobody bought. You might be feeling triggered, like, oh my gosh, I need to close down this business and this thing and that thing, and it doesn't work and whatever, right? But really, get down to the core. Like, what is it really? And I, like 100% more than likely, it's gonna come back down to something that happened in your childhood, like it always does, and just work through that. And you having like the understanding that it is today, and today you are safe, you are protected, you have a loving creator who takes care of you, and it was unfortunate that bad things happened to you as a child, or even like as a young adult. It doesn't matter, like it's okay, this is different now. And it goes back to what I was saying before, like you're not going to get emotionally charged, because you have a better understanding of you as a human being. So yes, a business can be an online business. I don't know about all types of business, to be very honest, because I own an online business. But yes, an online business can be very healing, because you are so like interconnected with this business. Like, you are the business, right? So when things come up, get curious, like, what is it really about? And like, I'm not suggesting that you're just gonna start journaling and like it's just gonna come to you. But I will tell you this: whether you are a person of faith, or you are agnostic, or you are atheist, like, I invite you to just say, okay, can you please, creator, if you are out there, right? If I'm saying, like, if you're atheist and you don't believe, right? Like, just ask, like, say, okay, can you just please tell me where this is coming from? Like, what is the root of it? And then ask, and then move on. Do something else. Go take a shower, go for a walk, go eat something. And one day, sooner than later, it'll come to you, like, boom. Like, Pandora's box is going to open. You're like, oh, there we go. So all you got to do is ask. Just ask. It's free, and you don't even have to tell anybody. So I hope that this episode has been insightful to you. This is very different than like the other episodes I have done. This is more personal, but I really wanted to share with you the lessons that I have learned. My goal is always to help you and to not add to the noise of the online space. I want you to actually walk away with something useful whenever you listen to me, whenever we hang out together. So thank you for listening to me for however long you have been listening to me. If this is your first episode, welcome. If you have been along for the journey for the past 5 years, bless your heart. Wow. Like, thank you for being here, and just thank you for coming along this journey. I cannot wait for what's ahead. Who knows, right? Who knows what the Father is going to do, the Heavenly Father, what's going to happen. But I'm excited. I am hopeful. I'm still hopeful. And I just really enjoy doing this and, getting to chat with you. Anyway, my love, thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.